So now let's talk about the origins of where animal sacrifice stemmed from. Hunting, according to Wikipedia, is the human practice of seeking, pursuing, capturing, and killing wildlife or feral animals. The most common reasons for humans to hunt are to obtain the animal's body for meat and useful animal products, fur, hide, bone, tusks, horn, antler, etc., for recreation or taxidermy or trophy hunting. Although it may also be done for resourceful reasons such as removing predators dangerous to humans or domestic animals like wolf hunting to eliminate pests and nuisance animals that damage crops, livestock, poultry, or spread disease like varmint hunting. For trade/tourism in the safari, or for ecological conservation against overpopulation and invasive species, commonly called a cull. Recreationally hunted species are generally referred to as the game and are usually mammals and birds. A person participating in a hunt is a hunter, or less commonly, huntsman. A natural area used for hunting is called a game reserve, and an experienced hunter who helps organize a hunt and or manage the game reserve is also known as a gamekeeper. Hunting activities by humans arose in Homo erectus or earlier, in the order of millions of years ago. Hunting has become deeply embedded in various human cultures and was once an important part of rural economies, classified by economists as part of primary production alongside forestry, agriculture, and fishery. Modern regulations, like the game law, distinguish lawful hunting activities from illegal poaching, which involves the unauthorized and unregulated killing, trapping, or capture of animals. Apart from food provision, hunting can be a means of population control. Hunting advocates state that regulated hunting can be a necessary component of modern wildlife management. For example, to help maintain a healthy proportion of animal populations within an environment's ecological carrying capacity when natural checks such as natural predators are absent or insufficient, or to provide funding for breeding programs and maintenance of natural reserves and conservation parks. However, excessive hunting has also heavily contributed to the endangerment, extirpation, and extinction of many animals. Some animal rights and anti-hunting activists regard hunting as a cruel, perverse, and unnecessary blood sport. Certain hunting practices, such as canned hunts and ludicrously paid/bribed trophy tours, especially to poor countries, are considered unethical and exploitative even by some hunters. Marine animals, such as whales and pinnipeds, are also targets of hunting, both recreationally and commercially, often with heated controversies regarding the morality, ethics, and legality of such practices. The pursuit, harvesting, or catch and release of fish and aquatic cephalopods and crustaceans is called fishing, which, however, is widely accepted and not commonly categorized as a form of hunting. I really don't understand how people say a live, living thing is not, like, I don't understand how people say that they don't eat meat, but they eat fish. Like, fish is not a meat or is not a living thing, whatever. Anyway, so the fishing they say is not commonly categorized as a form of hunting. It is also not considered hunting to pursue animals without intent to kill them, as in wildlife photography, bird watching, or scientific research activities, which involve tranquilizing or tagging of animals, although green hunting is still called so. The practices of netting or trapping insects and other arthropods for trophy collection, or the foraging or gathering of plants and mushrooms, are also not regarded as hunting. Skillful tracking and acquisition of an elusive target has caused the word hunt to be used in the vernacular as a metaphor for searching and obtaining something, as in treasure hunting, bargain hunting, hunting for votes, and even hunting down corruption and waste. The etymology. The word hunt serves as both a noun, the act, the practice, or an instance of hunting, and a verb, to pursue for food or in sport. The noun has been dated to the early 12th century from the verb hunt. Old English had hunting and huntop. The meaning of a body of persons associated for the purpose of hunting with a pack of hounds is first recorded in the 1570s. The act of searching for someone or something is from about 1600. The verb Old English huntian, to chase game, transitive and intransitive, perhaps developed from hunter, is related to hintan, to seize, from Proto-Germanic huntagen. The source also of Gothic hinpan, to seize, capture, Old High German hunda, or booty, which is of uncertain origin. The general sense of search diligently for anything is first recorded circa 1200. Types. Recreational hunting, also known as trophy hunting, sport hunting, or sporting. Big game hunting, big five game, lion, elephant, African buffalo, African leopard, and black rhinoceros. Bear hunting, bison hunting, boar hunting, tiger hunting, reindeer and caribou hunting, deer hunting / stalking. Interesting word. Medium / small game hunting, fox hunting, mink hunting, coon hunting, hare coursing, squirrel hunting. Fowling, waterfowl hunting, shorebird hunting, the snipe, woodcock, curlew, sandpiper, and plover. Upland hunting of the quail, pheasant, grouse, and turkey. Pest control / nuisance management. Predator hunting includes the wolf hunting, jackal coursing, coyote hunting, bobcat hunting. Varmint hunting includes rabbiting, rook shooting, and culling. Commercial hunting and traditional sustenance hunting includes seal hunting, whaling, dolphin drive, dugong hunting, alligator hunting, and kangaroo hunting. Other hunting includes falconry, green hunting, poaching, and trapping. History. Lower to Middle Paleolithic. Hunting has a long history. It predates the emergence of Homo sapiens, anatopically modern humans, and may even predate the genus Homo. The oldest undisputed evidence for hunting dates to the early Pleistocene, consistent with the emergence and early dispersal of Homo erectus about 1.7 million years ago, Apulian. While it is undisputed that Homo erectus were hunters, the importance of this for the emergence of Homo erectus from its Australopithecine ancestors, including the production of stone tools and eventually the control of fire, is emphasized in the so-called hunting hypothesis and de-emphasized in scenarios that stress omnivory and social interaction. There is no direct evidence for hunting predating Homo erectus in either Homo habilis or in Australopithecus. The early hominid ancestors of humans were probably frugivores or omnivores, with a partially carnivorous diet from scavenging rather than hunting. Evidence for Australopithecine meat consumption was presented in the 1990s. It has nevertheless often been assumed that at least occasional hunting behavior may have been present well before the emergence of Homo. This can be argued on the basis of comparison with chimpanzees, the closest extant relatives of humans who also engage in hunting, indicating that the behavioral trait may have been present in the chimpanzee human last common ancestor as early as 5 million years ago. Common to which humans, that is. The common chimpanzee, Pan troglodytes, regularly engages in troop predation behavior, where bands of beta males are led by an alpha male. Bonobos, panicus, have also been observed to occasionally engage in group hunting, although more rarely than pan troglodytes, mainly subsisting on frugivorous diet. Indirect evidence for Oldowan-era hunting by early Homo or late Australopithecus has been presented in a 2009 study based on an Oldowan site in southwestern Kenya. Louis Benford of 1986 criticized the idea that early hominids and early humans were hunters. On the basis of the analysis of the skeletal remains of the consumed animals, he concluded that hominids and early humans were mostly scavengers, not hunters. Blumenstein of 1986 proposed the idea of confrontational scavenging, which involves challenging and scaring off other predators after they have made a kill, which he suggests could have been the leading method of obtaining protein-rich meat by early humans. Stone spearheads dated as early as 500,000 years ago were found in South Africa. Wood does not preserve well, however, and Craig Stanford, a primatologist and professor of anthropology at the University of Southern California, has suggested that the discovery of spear use by chimpanzees probably means that early humans used wooden spears as well, perhaps 5 million years ago. The earliest dated find of surviving wooden hunting spears dates to the very end of the Lower Paleolithic, about 300,000 years ago. The Schöningen spears found in 1976 in Germany are associated with Homo heidelbergensis. The hunting hypothesis sees the emergence of behavioral modernity in the Middle Paleolithic as directly related to hunting, including mating behavior, the establishment of language, culture and religion, mythology, and animal sacrifice. Socialist David Nibbert of Wittenberg University argues that the emergence of the organized hunting of animals undermined the communal, egalitarian nature of early human societies, with the status of women and less powerful males declining as the status of men quickly became associated with their success at hunting, which also increased human violence within these societies. However, 9,000-year-old remains of a female hunter, along with a toolkit of projectile points and animal processing implements, were discovered at the Andean site of Willamaya Paxa, Puno district in Peru. Early humans progressively invented tools and techniques for trapping animals. The earliest spears were crafted from wood with tips toughened by burning. By 15,000 BC, hunters employed wooden and bone spear launchers to enhance force and distance. These devices were frequently adorned with carvings of creatures. Upper Paleolithic to Mesolithic. Evidence exists that hunting may have been one of the multiple or possibly main environmental factors leading to the Holocene extinction of megafauna and their replacement by smaller herbivores. Humans are thought to have played a very significant role in the extinction of the Australian megafauna that was widespread prior to human occupation. Hunting was a cruel component of hunter-gatherer societies before the domestication of livestock and the dawn of agriculture, beginning about 11,000 years ago in some parts of the world. In addition to the spear hunting weapons developed during the Upper Paleolithic include the atl, a spear thrower before 30,000 years ago, and the bow 18,000 years ago. By the Mesolithic, hunting strategies had diversified with the development of these more far-reaching weapons and the domestication of the dog about 15,000 years ago. Evidence puts the earliest known mammoth hunting in Asia with spears to approximately 16,200 years ago. Many species of animals have been hunted throughout history. One theory is that in North America and Eurasia, caribou and wild reindeer may well be the species of single greatest importance in the entire anthropological literature on hunting. See also the reindeer age. Although the varying importance of different species depended on the geographic location. Mesolithic hunter-gathering lifestyles remained prevalent in some parts of the Americas, sub-Saharan Africa, and Siberia, as well as all of Australia until the European Age of Discovery. They still persist in some tribal societies, albeit in rapid decline. Peoples that preserved Paleolithic hunting-gathering until the recent past include some indigenous peoples of the Amazonas, or Aki, some Central and Southern African San people, some peoples of New Guinea or Fayu, the Malabri of Thailand and Laos, the Veda people of Sri Lanka, and a handful of uncontacted peoples. In Africa, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer tribes are the Hadza of Tanzania. Neolithic and Antiquity. Even as animal domestication became relatively widespread and after the development of agriculture, hunting usually remained a significant contributor to the human food supply. The supplementary meat and materials from hunting included protein, bone for implements, sinew for cordage, fur, feathers, rawhide, and leather used in clothing. Hunting is still vital in marginal climates, especially those unsuited for pastoral uses or for agriculture. For example, Inuit in the Arctic trap and hunt animals for clothing and use the skins of sea mammals to make kayaks, clothing, and footwear. On ancient reliefs, especially from Mesopotamia, kings are often depicted by sculptors as hunters of big game, such as lions, and are often portrayed hunting from a war chariot. Early examples of royalty symbolically and militaristically engaging in hunting as the sport of kings. The cultural and psychological importance of hunting in ancient societies is represented by deities such as the horned god Cernunnos and lunar goddesses of classical antiquity. The Greek Artemis of Roman Diana. Taboos are often related to hunting and mythological association of prey species with a divinity could be reflected in hunting restrictions, such as a reserve surrounding a temple. Euripides' tale of Artemis and Actaeon, for example, may be seen as a caution against the disrespect of prey or against impudent boasting. With the domestication of the dog, birds of prey, and the ferret, various forms of animal-aided hunting developed, including venery, scent hound hunting such as fox hunting, coursing or sighthound hunting, falconry, and ferreting. While these are all associated with medieval hunting, over time, various dog breeds were selected by humans for very precise tasks during the hunt, reflected in such names as pointer and setter. Pastoral and agricultural societies. Even as agriculture and animal husbandry became more prevalent, hunting often remained as a part of human culture where the environment and social conditions allowed. Hunter-gatherer societies persisted even when increasingly confined to marginal areas. And within agricultural systems, hunting served to kill animals that prey upon domestic and wild animals, or to attempt to extirpate animals seen by humans as competition for resources such as water or forage. When hunting moved from a subsistence activity to a selective one, two trends emerged. The development of the role of the specialist hunter with special training and equipment, to the option of hunting as a sport for members of an upper social class. The meaning of the word game in Middle English evolved to include an animal which is hunted. As the domestication of animals for meat grew, subsistence hunting remained among the lowest classes. However, the stylized pursuit of game in European societies became a luxury. Dangerous hunting, such as for lions or wild boars, often done on horseback or from a chariot, had a function similar to tournaments and manly sports. Hunting ranked as an honorable, somewhat competitive pastime to help the aristocracy practice skills of war in times of peace. In most parts of medieval Europe, the upper class obtained the sole rights to hunt in certain areas of a feudal territory. Game in these areas was used as a source of food and furs, often provided via professional huntsmen, but it was also expected to provide a form of recreation for the aristocracy. The importance of this proprietary view of game can be seen in the Robin Hood legends, in which one of the primary charges against the outlaws is that they hunt the king's deer. In contrast, settlers in Anglophone colonies glorified democratically in hunting for all. In medieval Europe, hunting was considered by Johannes Scotus Erigena to be part of the set of 7 mechanical arts. Use of dog. Although various other animals have been used to aid the hunter, such as ferrets, the dog has assumed many very important uses to the hunter. The domestication of the dog has led to a symbiotic relationship in which the dog's independence from human is deferred. Though dogs can survive independently of humans, and in many cases do fairly, when raised or adopted by humans, the species tends to defer to its control in exchange for habitation, food, and support. Dogs today are used to find, chase, retrieve, and sometimes kill game. Dogs allow humans to pursue and kill prey that would otherwise be very difficult or dangerous to hunt. Different breeds of specifically bred hunting dog are used for different types of hunting. Waterfowl are commonly hunted using retrieving dogs such as the Labrador Retriever, the Golden Retriever, the Chesapeake Bay Retriever, the Brittany Spaniel, and other similar breeds. Game birds are flushed out using flushing spaniels such as the English Springer Spaniel, the various Cocker Spaniels, and similar breeds. The hunting of wild animals in England and Wales with dogs was banned under the Hunting Act 2004. The wild mammals include fox, hare, deer, and mink. There are, however, exceptions in the act. Nevertheless, there have been numerous attempts on behalf of activists, pressure groups, etc., to revoke the act over the last 2 decades. Religion. Many prehistoric deities are depicted as predators or prey of humans, often in a zoomorphic form, perhaps alluding to the importance of hunting for most Paleolithic cultures. In many pagan religions, specific rituals are conducted before or after a hunt. The rituals done may vary according to the species hunted or the season the hunt is taking place. Often a hunting ground or the hunt for one or more species was reserved or prohibited in the context of a temple cult. In Roman religion, Diana is the goddess of the hunt. Indian and Eastern religions. Hindu scriptures describe hunting as an occupation as well as a sport of the kingly. Even figures considered divine are described to have engaged in hunting. One of the names of the god Shiva is Mrigavyada, deer slayer. The word Mriga is in many Indian languages, including Malayalam, not only stands for deer, but for all animals and animal instincts, Mriga Shiva as Mrigavyada is the one who destroys the animal instincts in human beings. In the epic Ramayana, Dasharatha, the father of Rama, is said to have the ability to hunt in the dark. During one of his hunting expeditions, he accidentally killed Shravana, mistaking him for game. During Rama's exile in the forest, Ravana kidnapped his wife Sita from their hut while Rama was asked by Sita to capture a golden deer, and his brother Lakshman went after him. According to the Mahabharata, Panda, the father of the Pandavas, accidentally killed the sage Kendama and his wife with an arrow, mistaking them for a deer. Jainism teaches followers to have tremendous respect for all of life. Prohibitions for hunting and meat eating are the fundamental conditions for being a Jain. Buddhism's first precept is the respect for all sentient life. The general approach by all Buddhists is to avoid killing any living animals. Buddha explained the issue by saying all fear death, comparing others with oneself. One should neither kill nor cause to kill. In Sikhism, only meat obtained from hunting or slaughtered with the jakta is permitted. The Sikh gurus, especially Guru Hargobind and Guru Gobind Singh, were ardent hunters. Many old Sikh Rahatnamas like Prem Sumarag recommend hunting wild boar and deer. However, among modern Sikhs, the practice of hunting has died down, some even saying that all meat is forbidden. From early Christian times, hunting has been forbidden to Roman Catholic Church clerics. Thus, the Corpus Juris Canonicae, de Cleric Venat, says, "We forbid to all servants of God hunting and expeditions through the woods with hounds, and we also forbid them to keep hawks or falcons." The Fourth Council of the Lateran, held under Pope Innocent III, decreed, "We interdict hunting or hawking to all clerics." The decree of the Council of Trent is worded more mildly, "Let clerics abstain from illicit hunting and hawking," which seems to imply that not all hunting is illicit, and canonists generally make a distinction, declaring noisy, clamorosa hunting unlawful, but not quiet or quieta hunting. Ferrari gives it as the general sense of canonists that hunting is allowed to clerics if it be indulged in rarely and for sufficient cause, as necessity, utility, or honest recreation, and with that moderation which is becoming to the ecclesiastical state. Ziegler, however, thinks that the interpretation of the canonist is not in accordance with the letter or spirit of the laws of the church. Nevertheless, although a distinction between lawful and unlawful hunting is undoubtedly permissible, it is certain that a bishop can absolutely prohibit all hunting to the clerics of his diocese, as was done by synods at Milan, Avignon, Liege, Cologne, and elsewhere. Benedict XIV declared that such synodal decrees are not too severe, as an absolute prohibition of hunting is more conformable to the ecclesiastical law. In practice, therefore, the synodal statutes of various localities must be consulted to discover whether they allow quiet hunting or prohibit it altogether. Small-scale hunting as a family or subsistence farming activity is recognized by Pope Francis in his encyclical letter Laudato Si as a legitimate and valuable aspect of employment within the food production system. Hunting is not forbidden in Jewish law, although there is an aversion to it. The great 18th century authority Rabbi Yecheskel Landau, after a study, concluded although hunting would not be considered cruelty to animals insofar as the animal is generally killed quickly and not tortured, there is an unseemly element in it, namely cruelty. The other issue is that hunting can be dangerous, and Judaism places an extreme emphasis on the value of human life. Islamic Sharia law permits hunting of lawful animals and birds if they cannot be easily caught and slaughtered. However, this is only for the purpose of food and not for trophy hunting. East Africa. A safari, from a Swahili word meaning journey, expedition, especially in Africa, is defined as a journey to see or kill animals in their natural environment, most commonly in East Africa. Safari as a distinctive way of hunting was popularized by the U.S. author Ernest Hemingway and President Theodore Roosevelt. A safari may consist of a several days or even weeks-long journey with camping in the bush or jungle while pursuing big game. Nowadays, it is often used to describe hunting tours through African wildlife. Hunters are usually tourists accompanied by licensed and highly regulated professional hunters, local guides, skinners, and porters in more difficult terrains. A special safari type is the solo safari, where all the license acquiring, stalking, preparation, and outfitting is done by the hunter himself. Indian subcontinent. During the feudal and colonial times in British India, hunting or shikar was regarded as a regal sport in the numerous princely states, as many Maharajas and Nawabs, as well as British officers, maintained a whole corps of shikaris, big game hunters, who were native professional hunters. They would be headed by a master of the hunt, who might be styled Mer Shikar. Often they recruited the normally low-ranking local tribes because of their traditional knowledge of the environment and hunting techniques. Big game, such as Bengal tigers, might be hunted from the back of an Indian elephant. Regional social norms are generally antagonistic to hunting, while a few sects, such as the Bishnoi, lay special emphasis on the conservation of particular species, such as the antelope. India's Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 bans the killing of all wild animals. However, the chief wildlife warden may, if satisfied that any wild animal from a specified list has become dangerous to human life or is so disabled or diseased as to be beyond recovery, permit any person to hunt such an animal. In this case, the body of any wild animal killed or wounded becomes government property. The practice among the soldiers in British India during the 1770s of going out to hunt snipes, a shorebird considered extremely challenging for hunters due to its alertness, camouflaging color, and erratic flight behavior, is believed to be the origin of the modern word for sniper, as snipe hunters needed to be stealthy in addition to having tracking skills and marksmanship. The term was used in the 19th century and had become common usage by the First World War. The United Kingdom. Unarmed fox hunting on horseback with hounds is the type of hunting most closely associated with the United Kingdom. In fact, hunting without qualification implies fox hunting. With what in other countries is called hunting is called shooting birds or stalking deer in Britain. Fox hunting is a social activity for the upper classes, with roles strictly defined by wealth and status. Similar to fox hunting in many ways is the chasing of hares with hounds. Pairs of sight hounds or long dogs, such as greyhounds, may be used to pursue a hare in coursing, where the greyhounds are marked as to their skill in coursing the hare, but are not intended to actually catch it. Or the hare may be pursued with scent hounds, such as beagles or harriers. Other sorts of foxhounds may also be used for hunting stags or deer or mink. Deer stalking with rifles is carried out on foot without hounds, using stealth. These forms of hunting have been controversial in the UK. Animal welfare supporters believe that hunting causes unnecessary suffering to foxes, horses, and hounds. Proponents argue that the activity is a historical tradition. Using dogs to chase wild mammals was made illegal in February 2005 by the Hunting Act 2004. There were a number of exemptions under which the activity may not be illegal in the Act for hunting with hounds, but no exemptions at all for hare coursing. Shooting traditions. Game birds, especially pheasants, are shot with shotguns for sport in the UK. The British Association for Shooting and Conservation says that over 1 million people per year participate in shooting, including game shooting, clay pigeon shooting, and target shooting, duck hunt. Shooting as practiced in Britain, as opposed to traditional hunting, requires little questing for game. Around 35 million birds are released onto shooting estates every year, some having been factory farmed. Shoots can be elaborate affairs with guns placed in assigned positions and assistants to help load shotguns. When in position, beaters move through the areas of cover, swinging sticks or flags to drive the game out. Such events are often called drives or driven hunting. The open season for grouse in the UK begins on the 12th of August, the so-called Glorious 12th. The definition of game in the United Kingdom is governed by the Game Act of 1831, 1 and 2, Will.4.C32. A similar tradition, Ogio, exists in Spain. United States. North American hunting predates the United States by thousands of years and was an important part of many pre-Columbian Native American cultures. Native Americans retain some hunting rights and are exempt from some laws as part of Indian treaties and otherwise under federal law. Examples include eagle feather laws and exemptions in the Marine Mammal Protection Act. This is considered particularly important in Alaskan Native communities. Gun usage in hunting is typically regulated by game category, area within the state, and time period. Regulations for big game hunting often specify a minimum caliber or muzzle energy for firearms. The use of rifles is often banned for safety reasons in areas with high population densities or limited topographic relief. Regulations may also limit or ban the use of lead in ammunition because of environmental concerns. Specific seasons for bow hunting or muzzle-loading black powder guns are often established to limit competition with hunters using more effective weapons. Hunting in the United States is not associated with any particular class or culture. A 2006 poll showed 78% of Americans supported legal hunting, although relatively few Americans actually hunt. At the beginning of the 21st century, just 6% of Americans hunted. Southerners in states along the eastern seaboard hunted at a rate of 5%, slightly below the national average, and while hunting was more common in other parts of the South at 9%, these rates did not surpass those of the Plains states, where 12% of Midwesterners hunted. Hunting in other areas of the country fell below the national average. Overall, in the 1996 through 2006 period, the number of hunters over the age of 16 declined by 10%, a drop attributable to a number of factors including habitat loss and changes in recreation habits. The principles of the fair chase have been a part of the American hunting tradition for over 100 years. The role of the hunter conservationist, popularized by Theodore Roosevelt and perpetuated by Roosevelt's formation of the Boone and Crockett Club, has been central to the development of the modern fair chase tradition. Beyond Fair Chase, The Ethic and Tradition of Hunting, a book by Jim Posewitz, describes fair chase. Fundamental to ethical hunting is the idea of fair chase. This concept addresses the balance between the hunter and the hunted. It is a balance that allows hunters to occasionally succeed while animals generally avoid being taken. While internet hunting was introduced in 2005, allowing people to hunt over the internet, using remotely controlled guns, the practice was widely criticized by hunters as violating the principles of fair chase. As a representative of the National Rifle Association of America, NRA, explained, the NRA has always maintained that fair chase, being in the field with your firearm or bow, is an important element of hunting tradition. Sitting at your desk in front of your computer clicking at a mouse has nothing to do with hunting. Animals such as black buck, nilgai, axis deer, fallow deer, zebras, barasingha, gazelle, and many other exotic game species can now be found on game farms and ranches in Texas, where they were introduced for sport gaming. These hunters can be found paying in excess of $10,000 to take trophy animals on these controlled ranches. Russia. The Russian imperial hunts evolved from hunting traditions of early Russian rulers, grand princes, and czars under the influence of hunting customs of European royal courts. The imperial hunts were organized mainly in Peterhof, Tsarskoye Selo, and Gatchina. Australia. Hunting in Australia has evolved around the hunting and eradication of various animals considered to be pests or invasive species. All native animals are protected by law, and certain species, such as kangaroos and ducks, can be hunted by licensed shooters, but only under a special permit on public lands during open seasons. The introduced species that are targeted include European rabbits, red foxes, deer, sambar, hog, red fallow, shittle, and rusa, feral cats, pigs, goats, brumbies, donkeys, and occasionally camels, as well as introduced upland birds such as quails, pheasants, and partridges. New Zealand. New Zealand has a strong hunting culture. When humans arrived, the only mammals present on the islands making up New Zealand were bats, although seals and other marine mammals were present along the coast. However, when humans arrived, they brought other species with them. Polynesian voyagers introduced curry or dogs, kior, meaning Polynesian rats, as well as a range of plant species. European explorers further added to New Zealand's biota, particularly pigs, which were introduced by either Captain Cook or the French explorer de Surville in the 1700s. During the 19th century, as European colonization took place, acclimatization societies were established. The societies introduced a large number of species with no use other than as prey for hunting. Species that adapted well to the New Zealand terrain include deer, pigs, goats, hare, tahr, and kami. With wilderness areas, suitable forage, and no natural predators, their populations exploded. Government agencies view the animals as pests due to their effects on the natural environment and on agricultural production, but hunters view them as a resource. Iran. Iranian tradition regarded hunting as an essential part of a prince's education, and hunting was well recorded for the education of the upper-class youths during pre-Islamic Persia. As of October 2020, a hunting license cost $20,000. The Department of Environment, although do not report the number of permits issued. Japan. The numbers of licensed hunters in Japan, including those using snares and guns, is generally decreasing while their average age is increasing. As of 2010, there were approximately 190,000 registered hunters, approximately 65% of whom were 60 years old or older. Trinidad and Tobago. There is very active tradition of hunting small to medium-sized wild game in Trinidad and Tobago. Hunting is carried out with firearms, slingshots, and cage traps, and sometimes aided by the use of hounds. The illegal use of trap guns and snare nets also occurs, with approximately 12,000 to 13,000 hunters applying for and being granted hunting permits in recent years. There is some concern that the practice might not be sustainable. In addition, there are at present no bag limits, and the open season is comparatively very long, 5 months, October to February inclusive. As such, hunting pressure from legal hunters is very high. Added to that, there is a thriving and very lucrative black market for poached wild game, sold and enthusiastically purchased as expensive luxury delicacies, and the numbers of commercial poachers in operation is unknown, but presumed to be fairly high. As a result, the populations of the 5 major mammalian game species, red-rumped agouti, lowland paca, 9-banded armadillo, collared peccary, and red-brocked deer are thought to be relatively low when compared to less hunted regions in nearby mainland South America, although scientifically conducted population studies are only just recently being conducted as of 2013. It appears that the red-brocked deer population has been extirpated in Tobago as a result of overhunting. By some time in the mid-20th century, another extirpation due to overhunting occurred in Trinidad with its population of horned screamer, a large game bird. Various herons, ducks, doves, the green iguana, the cryptic golden tegu, the spectacled caiman, the common opossum, and the capybara are also commonly hunted and poached. There is also some poaching of fully protected species, including red howler monkey and capuchin monkeys, southern tamandua, Brazilian porcupine, yellow-footed tortoise, the critically endangered island endemic Trinidad piping guan, and even one of the national birds, the scarlet ibis. Legal hunters pay relatively small fees to obtain hunting licenses and undergo no official basic conservation biology or hunting ethics / fair chase training, and are not assessed regarding their knowledge and comprehension of the local wildlife conservation laws. There is presumed to be relatively little subsistence hunting in the country, with most hunting for either sport or commercial profit. The local wildlife management authorities are understaffed and underfunded, and as such, little in the way of enforcement is done to uphold existing wildlife management laws, with hunting / poaching occurring both in and out of season, and even in wildlife sanctuaries. There is some indication that the government is beginning to take the issue of wildlife management more seriously, with well-drafted legislation being brought before Parliament in 2015. It remains to be seen if the drafted legislation will be fully adopted and financially supported by the current and future governments, and if the general populace will move towards a greater awareness of the importance of wildlife conservation and change the culture of wanton consumption to one of suitable management. Wildlife management. Hunting is claimed to give resource managers an important tool in managing populations that might exceed the carrying capacity of their habitat and threaten the well-being of other species, or in some instances, damage human health or safety. In some cases, hunting actually can increase the population of predators, such as coyotes, by removing territorial bounds that would otherwise be established, resulting in excess neighboring migrations into an area, thus artificially increasing the population. Hunting advocates assert that hunting reduces intraspecific competition for food and shelter, reducing mortality among the remaining animals. Some environmentalists assert that reintroducing predators would achieve the same end with greater efficiency and less negative effect, such as introducing significant amounts of free lead into the environment and food chain. In the United States, wildlife managers are frequently part of hunting regulatory and licensing bodies, where they help to set rules on the number, manner, and conditions in which game may be hunted. Management agencies sometimes rely on hunting to control specific animal populations, as has been the case with deer in North America. These hunts may sometimes be carried out by professional shooters, although others may include amateur hunters. Many U.S. and local governments hire professional and amateur hunters each year to reduce populations of animals such as deer that are becoming hazardous in a restricted area, such as neighborhood parks and metropolitan open spaces. A large part of managing populations involves managing the number and sometimes the size or age of animals harvested, so as to ensure the sustainability of the population. Tools that are frequently used to control harvest are bag limits and season closures, although gear restrictions such as archery-only seasons are becoming increasingly popular in an effort to reduce hunter success rates in countries that rely on bag limits per hunter instead of per area. Laws. Illegal hunting and harvesting of wild species, contrary to local and international conservation and wildlife management laws, is called poaching. Game preservation is one of the tactics used to prevent poaching. Violations of hunting laws and regulations involving poaching are normally punishable by law. Punishment can include confiscation of equipment, fines, or a prison sentence. Right to hunt. The right to hunt, sometimes in combination with the right to fish, is protected implicitly as a consequence of the right of ownership or explicitly as a right on its own in a number of jurisdictions. For instance, as of 2019, a total of 22 U.S. states explicitly recognize a subjective right to hunt in their constitutions. Bag limits. Bag limits are provisions under the law that control how many animals of a given species or group of species can be killed, although there are often species for which bag limits do not apply. There are also jurisdictions where bag limits are not applied at all or are not applied under certain circumstances. The phrase bag limits come from the custom among hunters of small game to carry successful kills in a small basket, similar to a fishing creel. Where bag limits are used, there can be daily or seasonal bag limits. For example, ducks can often be harvested at a rate of 6 per hunter per day. Big game, like moose, must often have a seasonal bag limit of 1 animal per hunter. Bag limits may also regulate the size, sex, or age of animal that a hunter can kill. In many cases, bag limits are designed to allocate harvest among the hunting population more equitably rather than to protect animal populations, as protecting the population would necessitate regional density dependent maximum bags. Closed and open season. A closed season is a time during which hunting an animal of a given species is contrary to law. Typically, closed seasons are designed to protect a species when they are most vulnerable or to protect them during their breeding season. By extension, the period that is not the closed season is known as the open season. Methods. Historical subsistence and sport hunting techniques can differ radically with modern hunting regulations, often addressing issues of where, when, and how hunts are conducted. Techniques may vary depending on government regulations, a hunter's personal ethics, local custom, hunting equipment, and the animal being hunted. Often, a hunter will use a combination of more than one technique. Laws may forbid sport hunters from using some methods used primarily in poaching and wildlife management. Baiting is the use of decoys, lures, scent, or food. Battue involves scaring animals by beating sticks into a killing zone or ambush. Beagling is the use of beagles in hunting rabbits and sometimes in hunting foxes. Beating uses human beaters to flush out game from an area or drive it into position. Stand hunting or blind hunting is waiting for animals from a concealed or elevated position, for example, from tree stands, hunting blinds, or other types of shooting stands. Calling is the use of animal noises to attract or drive animals. Camouflage is the use of visual or odor concealment to blend with the environment. Dogs may be used to course or to help flush, herd, drive, track, point at, pursue, or retrieve prey. Driving is the herding of animals in a particular direction, usually toward another hunter in the group, called driven hunt. Falconry is the hunting of wild animals in their natural state and habitat by means of a trained bird or bird of prey. Flushing is the practice of scaring animals from concealed areas. Ghillie suit is a type of gear a person can wear to blend with the environment. Glassing is the use of optics, such as binoculars, to locate animals more easily. Glue is an indiscriminate passive form to kill birds. Internet hunting is a method of hunting over the internet using webcams and remotely controlled guns. Netting involves using nets, including active netting with the use of cannon nets and rocket nets. Persistence hunting is the use of running and tracking to pursue the prey to exhaustion. Posting is done by sitting or standing in a particular place with the intentions of intercepting your game of choice along their travel corridor. Scouting for game is typically done prior to a hunt and will ensure the desired species are in a chosen area. Looking for animal sign such as tracks, scat, etc., and utilizing trail cameras are commonly used tactics while scouting. Shooting is the use of a ranged weapon such as a gun, bow, crossbow, or slingshot. Lunar theory says that animals move according to the location of the moon in comparison to their bodies, and is said to have been used long before this by hunters to know the best times to hunt their desired game. Spotlighting or shining is the use of artificial light to find or blind animals before killing. Horrible. Stalking or steal hunting is the practice of walking quietly in search of animals or in pursuit of an individual animal. Tracking is the practice of reading physical evidence in pursuing animals. Trapping is the use of devices such as snares, pits, and deadfalls to capture or kill an animal. Trophy hunting. Trophy hunting is the selective seeking and killing of wild game animals to take trophies for personal collection, bragging rights, or as a status symbol. It may also include the controversial hunting of captive or semi-captive animals expressly bred and raised under controlled or semi-controlled conditions so as to attain trophy characteristics. This is sometimes known as canned hunts. The history. In the 19th century, Southern and Central European sport hunters often pursued game only for a trophy, usually the head or pelt of an animal, which was then displayed as a sign of prowess. The rest of the animal was typically discarded. Some cultures, however, disapprove of such waste. In Nordic countries, hunting for trophies was and still is frowned upon. Hunting in North America in the 19th century was done primarily as a way to supplement food supplies, although it is now undertaken mainly for sport. The safari method of hunting was a development of sport hunting that saw elaborate travel in Africa, India, and other places in pursuit of trophies. In modern times, trophy hunting persists and is a significant industry in some areas. A conservation tool. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, hunting provides an economic incentive for ranchers to continue to breed those species, and that hunting reduces the threat of the species extinction. A scientific study in the journal Biological Conservation states that trophy hunting is of major importance to conservation in Africa by creating economic incentives for conservation over vast areas, including areas which may be unsuitable for alternative wildlife-based land uses such as photographic ecotourism. However, another study states that less than 3% of a trophy hunter's expenditures reach the local level, meaning that the economic incentive and benefit is minimal, particularly when we consider the vast areas of land that hunting concessions occupy. Financial incentives from trophy hunting effectively more than double the land area that is used for wildlife conservation, relative to what would be conserved relying on national parks alone, according to biological conservation. Although local communities usually derive no more than 18% per hectare from trophy hunting. Trophy hunting has been considered essential for providing economic incentives to conserve large carnivores, according to research studies in conservation biology. Journal of Sustainable Tourism, Wildlife Conservation by Sustainable Use, and Animal Conservation. Studies by the Center for Responsible Tourism and the IUCN state that ecotourism, which includes more than hunting, is a superior economic incentive, generating twice the revenue per acre and 39 times more permanent employment. At the cross section of trophy hunting, ecotourism and conservation is green hunting, a trophy hunting alternative where hunters pay to dart animals that need to be tranquilized for conservation projects. The U.S. House Committee on Natural Resources in 2016 concluded that trophy hunting may be contributing to the extinction of certain animals. Animal welfare organizations, including the International Fund for Animal Welfare, claim that trophy hunting is a key factor in the silent extinction of giraffes. According to a national survey that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service conducts every 5 years, fewer people are hunting even as population rises. National Public Radio reported a graph shows 2016 statistics that only about 5% of Americans 16 years old and older actually hunt, which is half of what it was 50 years ago. The decline in popularity of hunting is expected to accelerate over the next decade, which threatens how U.S. will pay for conservation. Controversy. Trophy hunting is most often criticized when it involves rare or endangered animals. Opponents may also see trophy hunting as an issue of morality or animal cruelty, criticizing the killing of living creatures for recreation. Victorian-era dramatist W.S. Gilbert remarked, "Deer stalking would be a very fine sport if only the deer had guns." There is also debate about the extent to which trophy hunting benefits the local economy. Hunters pay substantial fees to the game outfitters and hunting guides, which contributes to the local economy and provides value to animals that would otherwise be seen as competition for grazing, livestock, and crops. However, the argument is disputed by animal welfare organizations and other opponents of trophy hunting. It is argued that the animals are worth more to the community for ecotourism than hunting. Economics. A variety of industries benefit from hunting and support hunting on economic grounds. In Tanzania, it is estimated that a safari hunter spends 50 to 100 times that of the average ecotourist. While the average photo tourist may seek luxury accommodation, the average safari hunter generally stays in tented camps. Safari hunters are also more likely to use remote areas, uninviting to the typical ecotourist. Advocates argue that these hunters allow for anti-poaching activities and revenue for local communities. In the United Kingdom, the game hunting of birds as an industry is said to be extremely important to the rural economy. The Cobham report of 1997 suggested it to be worth around $700 million. And hunting and shooting lobby groups claimed it to be worth over £1 billion less than 10 years later. Hunting also has a significant financial impact in the United States, with many companies specializing in hunting equipment or specialty tourism. Many different technologies have been created to assist hunters. Today's hunters come from a broad range of economic, social, and cultural backgrounds. In 2001, over 13 million hunters averaged 18 days hunting and spent over $20.5 billion on their sport. In the U.S., proceeds from hunting licenses contribute to state game management programs, including preservation of wildlife habitat. Hunting contributes to a portion of caloric intake of people and may have positive impacts on greenhouse gas emissions by avoidance of utilization of meat raised under industrial methods. Environmental problems. Lead bullets that miss their target or remain in an unretrieved carcass could become a toxicant in the environment, but lead but lead in ammunition, because of its metallic form, has a lower solubility and higher resistance to corrosion than other forms of lead, making it hardly available to biological systems. Waterfowl or other birds may ingest the lead and poison themselves with the neurotoxicant, but studies have demonstrated that effects of lead and in ammunition are negligible on animal population size and growth. Since 1991, U.S. federal law forbids lead shot in waterfowl hunts, and 30 states have some type of restriction. In December 2014, a federal appeals court denied a lawsuit by environmental groups that the EPA must use the Toxic Substances Control Act to regulate lead in shells and cartridges. The groups sought EPA to regulate spent lead, yet the court found EPA could not regulate spent lead without also regulating cartridges and shells. Conservation. Hunters have been driving forces throughout history in the movement to ensure the preservation of wildlife habitats and wildlife for further hunting. However, excessive hunting and poachers have also contributed heavily to the endangerment, extirpation, and extinction of many animals, such as the quagga, the great auk, Steller's sea cow, the thylacine, the blue buck, the Arabian oryx, the Caspian and Javan tigers, the markhor, the Sumatran rhinoceros, the bison, the North American cougar, the Altai argali sheep, the Asian elephant, and many more, primarily for commercial sale or sport. All these animals have been hunted to endangerment or extinction. Poaching currently threatens bird and mammalian populations around the world. The 2019 Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services lists the direct exploitation of organisms, including hunting, as the second leading cause of biodiversity loss after land use for agriculture. In 2022, IPBES released another report which stated that unsustainable hunting, along with unsustainable logging and fishing, are primary drivers of the global extinction crisis. A 2023 study published in Bioscience posited that the prioritizing of hunting by state agencies in the United States over the rewilding of key species is reinforcing the loss of biodiversity. Legislation. Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act of 1937. In 1937, American hunters successfully lobbied the U.S. Congress to pass the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act, which placed an 11% tax on all hunting equipment. This self-imposed tax now generates over $700 million each year and is used exclusively to establish, restore, and protect wildlife habitats. The act is named for Nevada Senator Keith Pittman and Virginia Congressman Absalom Willis Robertson. Federal Duck Stamp Program. On the 16th of March, 1934, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Migratory Bird Hunting Stamp Act, which requires an annual stamp purchase by all hunters over the age of 16. The stamps are created on behalf of the program by the U.S. Postal Service and depict wildlife artwork chosen through an annual contest. They play an important role in habitat conservation because 98% of all funds generated by their sale go directly toward the purchase or lease of wetland habitat for protection in the National Wildlife Refuge System. In addition to waterfowl, it is estimated that 1/3 of the nation's endangered species seek food and shelter in areas protected using duck stamp funds. Since 1934, the sale of federal duck stamps has generated $670 million and helped to purchase or lease $5,200,000. No, five 5,200,000 acres or 8,100 square miles, 21,000 kilometers squared of habitat. The stamps serve as a license to hunt migratory birds, an interest pass for all national wildlife refuge areas, and are also considered collector's items often purchased for aesthetic reasons outside of the hunting and birding communities. Although non-hunters buy a significant number of duck stamps, 87% of their sales are contributed by hunters. Distribution of funds is managed by the Migratory Bird Conservation Commission, MBCC. Species. Arabian oryx or oryx, a species of large antelope, once inhabited much of the desert areas of the Middle East. Native Bedouin tribes have long hunted the oryx using camels and arrows. Oil exploration made the habitat increasingly accessible, and the species' striking appearance made it, along with the closely related scimitar, horned oryx, and addax, a popular quarry for sport hunters, including foreign executives of oil companies. The use of automobiles and high-powered rifles destroyed their only advantage, speed, and they became extinct in the wild exclusively due to sport hunting in 1972. The scimitar horned oryx followed suit, while the addax became critically endangered. However, the Arabian oryx has now made a comeback and been upgraded from extinct in the wild to vulnerable due to conservation efforts like captive breeding. Markhor. The markhor is an endangered species of wild goat which inhabits the mountains of Central Asia and Pakistan. The colonization of these regions by Britain gave British sport hunters access to the species, and they were hunted heavily almost to the point of extinction. Only their willingness to breed in captivity and the inhospitability of their mountainous habitat prevented this. Despite these factors, the markhor is still endangered. American bison. The American bison is a large bovid which inhabited much of western North America prior to the 1800s, living on the prairies in large herds. However, the vast herds of bison attracted market hunters who killed dozens of bisons for their hides, only leaving the rest to rot. Thousands of these hunters quickly eliminated the bison herds, bringing the population from several million in the early 1800s to a few hundred by the 1800s or the 1880s. Conservation efforts have allowed the population to increase, but the bison remains near threatened due to lack of habitat. The white rhino. The Journal of International Wildlife Law and Policy cites that the legalization of white rhinoceros hunting in South Africa motivated private landowners to reintroduce the species onto their lands. As a result, the country saw an increase in white rhinos from fewer than 100 individuals to more than 11,000, even while a limited number were killed as trophies. However, the illegal hunting of rhinoceros for their horns is highly damaging to the population and is currently growing globally, with 1,004 being killed in South Africa alone, according to the most recent estimate. The white rhino, along with the other 4 rhino species, are poached due to beliefs that the rhino's horns can be used to cure cancer, arthritis, and other diseases and illnesses, even though they are scientifically proven wrong. Other species. According to Richard Conniff Namibia is home to 1,750 of the roughly 5,000 black rhinos surviving in the wild because it allows trophy hunting of various species. Namibia's mountain zebra population has increased to 27,000 from 1,000 in 1982. Elephants, which are gunned down elsewhere for their ivory, have gone to 20,000 from 15,000 in 1995. Lions, which were on the brink of extinction from Senegal to Kenya, are increasing in Namibia. In contrast, Botswana in 2012 banned trophy hunting following a precipitous wildlife decline. The numbers of antelope plummeted across Botswana with a resultant decline in predator numbers, while elephant numbers remained stable and hippopotamus numbers rose. According to the government of Botswana, trophy hunting is at least partly to blame for this, but many other factors such as poaching, drought, and habitat loss are also to blame. Uganda recently did the same, arguing that the share of benefits of sport hunting were lopsided and unlikely to deter poaching or improve Uganda's capacity to manage the wildlife reserves. In 2020, Botswana reopened trophy hunting on public lands. Studies. A study published by the Wildlife Society concluded that hunting and trapping are cost-effective tools that reduce wildlife damage by reducing a population below the capacity of the environment to carry it and changing the behaviors of animals to stop them from causing damage. The study furthermore states that the cessation of hunting could cause wildlife to be severely harmed, rural property values to fall, and the incentive of landowners to maintain natural habitats to diminish. Although deforestation and forest degradation have long been considered the most significant threats to tropical biodiversity across Southeast Asia, Northeast India, Indochina, Sundaland, Philippines, substantial areas of natural habitat have few wild animals, less than 1 kilogram. Guess that's a kilogram. Bar a few hunting tolerant species. Opposition. Animal rights activists argue that killing animals for sport is unethical, cruel, and unnecessary. They note the suffering and cruelty inflicted on animals hunted for sport. Many animals endure prolonged, painful deaths when they are injured but not killed by hunters. Hunting disrupts migration and hibernation patterns and destroys families. Animal rights activists also comment that hunting is not needed to maintain an ecological balance and that nature takes care of its own. They say that hunting can be combated on public lands by spreading deer repellent or human hair from barbershops near hunting areas. Animal rights activists also argue that hunting is speciesist. Whether hunters try to justify their killing by citing human deaths caused by wild animals, by making conservationist claims, by claiming that it's acceptable to hunt as long as the animals' bodies are eaten, or simply because of the pleasure it brings to them, the fact remains that hunting is morally unacceptable if we consider the interest of non-human animals. Hunted animals endure fear and pain and then are deprived of their lives. Understanding the injustices of speciesism and the interest of non-human animals makes it clear that human pleasure cannot justify non-human animals' pain.